This video is about how to care for someone with ME who has severe ME. Now, people who have severe ME, if you do the wrong thing, then you can further damage their health. Severe ME is a chronic fatigue syndrome. The person has very little energy. Therefore, if you do things that cause them to use energy, then you could be doing them actual physical damage. Therefore, here is some advice how to help that person save energy. So firstly, when you first encounter the person, they'll probably be lying in bed, trying not to talk, trying not to look at anything, trying to stay nice and quiet, and keep their body floppy and not use any energy at all. So, the first thing to ask them is to find out if they can talk. Some people with severe ME can't talk at all. Some people with severe ME can only talk with a whisper. Some people can only talk for a few minutes. This is their maximum amount of energy. If they can't talk, then it's likely that there are written instructions how to care for this person, and it's important to find these instructions and follow them, and that will be explained later about instructions. If the person can't talk, then just because they're not saying anything or expressing any emotion, that doesn't mean that you're not causing them distress or tiring them out. Some people like to wear earplugs because they're too tired to listen to words. They can't read. Reading's too tiring. Listening is too tiring. Therefore, if you talk to them, you could be wearing them out. This is why it always starts with the following point: can you talk? If they can't talk, don't try to have a conversation with them because you'll wear them out. So if they say they can talk, then you ask them how long they can talk for. So they might say 3 minutes. So in this case, you'd never make them talk for more than 3 minutes, because otherwise they won't have any energy left. So the second thing so you shouldn't talk to them probably more than 3 minutes either, if they say that. So now you've got your communication established, you need to understand that it takes a lot of effort for the person to communicate. If they've written out some instructions for you, it might have taken them many hours to write that out. And they might have to write one sentence, then rest, then another sentence, then half an hour rest, then another sentence, then another couple of hours rest. So, if you don't follow those instructions, and they have to repeat them verbally, that also can damage them, because again, they're having to use energy, and they wrote that sheet to save energy, so then they wouldn't have to talk. So please follow the instructions on the pieces of paper that you are given, and don't make it so they have to remind you or deviate from the instructions, so then they have to put up a struggle, almost like an argument with you. They need to save energy, so there needs to be no argument and no reminders. So just follow the instructions on the sheet. If you have a problem with the sheet, for example, there are too many, it's too long-winded, there are too many detailed instructions, then tell the person, negotiate with the person for them to write out another sheet that's more concise, or perhaps write out a concise version for them to save them energy. So that is the first point, how to communicate with someone with severe ME without causing them damage, without tiring them out. So the second point is that they need to physically stay floppy all the time in order to save energy. So if you start moving them about on the bed, that makes it so then they have to use muscles, or asking them to move in a certain way, then this might be devastating for them. They need to stay floppy all the time. So if you lift them up but you don't support the head will be hanging back, and the neck will be getting strained, and they'll be straining muscles and using all their energy, and that could make them severely ill. So you need to, before you begin moving the person, you need to imagine that you are in that position of that person and check that the way you're moving them ensures that they can remain completely floppy without using any muscles at all. Another example is if you're washing the hair and you wanted to put them to put the head in on these special inflatable bowls that you can put water into. You don't say just lift your head up to go in that bowl. You lift their head up so then they don't have to use any muscles. So basically that's 2 points, communication and floppiness. Now you have to understand what the person with ME is trying to do. They're trying to save energy. Bright lights require energy. Sounds require energy. So they might prevent light, they might prevent sound, and they'll try to sit still, not talk. Talking requires energy. Watching television, listening to music, thinking requires energy. Feeling requires energy. Now from your perspective, you're looking at that person and thinking, if I had to sit that still for that long, I'd be going mad. And so what I'd need, if I was in that position, is to be able to go outside or do something fun, or maybe have some television on, just anything. So if you're feeling tormented by their plight and you want to offer some relief, then you could be trying to get them to do things that will use energy and will actually damage them. So if there is anything that they can do to get any pleasure out of life, they would have written instructions that enable them to do those activities on the sheet of how you can help them. So the best way you can help them is by following the instructions on the sheets and not deviating from them. Because if they go to do those activities you're suggesting, then they'll have a relapse, and then they'll be even able to do less, and they'll have to sit still for even more longer periods of time. So although it might provide a few moments of relief, in the long term it makes it worse. The best chance that person has of being able to get out of bed and go outside and see the garden and get some pleasure out of life, or maybe even watch a TV programme or talk to a friend, is if they sit still for as long as possible and don't talk to anybody, don't move, and so on. So you must encourage them to do this and support them in doing this. So this is my principal advice. Communication, keep it to an absolute minimum and follow the person's guidelines on communication. Keep them floppy. Don't ask them to do anything that will require mental or physical energy. And follow their instructions and don't deviate from the instructions. So that's how you care for a person with ME. And there's another part to this video now which is optional, and this is giving more detail, more examples of how things can go wrong. So if you have a carer and you have ME, you're trying to save energy. Now you might be able to wander around the room a little bit after a long rest, or maybe even get to another room. But the person with ME gets very tired very quickly, and one thing that tires them out very quickly is if they can't find something they need. So they'll probably have instructions, and one of the instructions will be to put everything back exactly where and as you found it. So if they can't find something like, say, a pen or a tablet or the plug for the fridge, for the sink, or well, anything, then they could be struggling for the entire day trying to find this thing or without this thing because they haven't got the strength to find it. So people with ME often have a system of organising things and this is another part of saving energy. Now I have in the past used an entire day's energy because one item wasn't put back where it was supposed to be, and then I've had to spend the whole day refraining from the tiny things that I could get pleasure out of life for. I had to abstain from them on that day, and with severe ME, the people sat there still all day. Underneath all that is a very deep level of upset that they have to refrain from enjoyable activities, a great deal of frustration, and this can often lead to things like panic attacks, suicidal feelings and so on. So if you had to sit still all day doing nothing, then you would probably be suicidal after a few months. But any sane person would be. So basically, people with ME do have a few small things that they can do to get pleasure out of their life, and these keep them sane. Now, if that energy for those activities is having to be used to deal with problems because the carers didn't follow the instruction sheet, then that means for that day that person can't relieve their depression, can't get rid of their suicidal feelings and so on, because the things that they do to get rid of those feelings, they've had to cancel those activities because they had to use their energy to find a pen or something like that, or find their medication and so on, or to call the care agency because something's gone wrong, something that wouldn't have gone wrong if the instructions on the sheet had been followed. This is why it's very important. So people with ME, they say put everything back where you find it. If you unplug something, for example, so then you plug in the vacuum cleaner, then plug it back in afterwards, because if the ME person has to crawl over to the other side of their room to re-plug it back in, then that device, whether it be a computer or something, or the television, they might not be able to actually use it for the rest of the day because it took all their strength to get across that plug socket. Other things you can do energy saving is, for example, if you've got like a kettle and you fill it with water, then once you finish making them a cuppa, if they can get to the kettle, then leave them enough water in to make another cuppa. But don't make the kettle too heavy that they can't lift it, or else they might have an accident. So it'd be like a cup full of water and maybe a kettle in with a cup full of water, then they could make 2 drinks and only lift a small amount of water each time. Simple things like that. Just think about saving energy, every single way that person could save energy. And you don't have to think of all the different ways, because most likely they would have written them all down on a sheet, and it might seem very meticulous and annoying, the detail of the instructions, but that person's trying to save energy from saying those things to you. So please be patient and understanding. They're not a sort of anal person, they're just trying to save energy, and because all of us people with ME do it, then it's not some kind of personality problem. Although it might be annoying to you, we understand that, but we're cornered, and this is our only way out of the situation, so we have to do things like this. So please understand, please follow the instructions, please talk minimally in order to save the person energy, and help person stay floppy and not have to do anything more than they're capable of. Thank you very much for listening, and good luck with caring for your patients and relatives and so on, and thank you for doing it. We all appreciate it.